So excited. I actually see both players becoming good quarterbacks. I just see Brock as he had 4 years in college. He's ready to roll. He's ready to play.
Yep.
Trey reminds me a lot of Alex Smith, not from the standpoint of how they throw or anything like that, or how they move,
Kind of
but just
career
that,
arc.
well, just like great prospects on paper. Like the one thing I wanted Aaron Rodgers in that '05 draft, but it was undeniable that Alex Smith was a great prospect on paper. Why? He graduated Utah in 2 years with an econ degree. He had the highest Wonderlic score in the history of the Wonderlic. He was 6'4", 220, athletic, fast.
Yeah.
A lot of great traits. And then I look at Trey and I see smart kid, good family, very athletic, really strong arm. And I just think there's no doubt. And football's really important to him, which is obviously a huge factor. You
Right.
take those factors, and I that's why I loved him so much on draft day. But now watching him, I also think he's going to have an Alex Smith like career trajectory where he sucks at first. He's going to struggle. There's going to be bumps in the road, but he's going to keep working at it, keep working at it. And at some point, I really believe Trey is going to be one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. But I don't think it's going to be this year. I think it's probably going to be like 3 or 4 years down the road. But I do think it's going to happen. But I just don't know if the Niner fan or the Niner organization or the players, the locker room, Shanahan, Lynch, I don't see anybody being that patient. So I just have a hard time picturing him doing it here. But I definitely think he's got the skill set to eventually get it. And I think it's important to him. So I think he'll eventually get it. What do you think? I mean, so Purdy's your number one next year. Is Lance going to be the number two? And if Lance is number two, what do you think? Is his agent going to call John Lynch and say, trade me somewhere where I can be number one? I need to play, because I think I can make a very compelling argument to anybody that take Purdy aside, put him aside, and forget his physical status, that Trey Lance needs to play football.
Yeah.
He needs to play. He can't sit anymore. He's got to play. So how do you solve that, Brad? I mean, one guy's totally polished and ready to play. The other guy's really raw and not ready to play. But the guy who's raw and not ready to play needs to play to get better.
Trey has been cursed by being a raw prospect, going to a team that needs to win now and wants to win now, and has and this is just my perspective, a perfectionist of a offensive signal caller who demands consistency, I think, more than flash. And I think with Trey, I think you're right. Like, we were at training camp. I've seen Trey Lance in 2 training camps now. I went to Minnesota, watched him in the joint practices. I've seen enough of Trey Lance to feel like I've got a good feel for him. And what you see out of Trey Lance is you see his ability to throw the deep ball, the play action boots, to be able to uncork it, whether it's hitting a Trent Sherfield against the Chiefs in preseason, whether it's hitting Deebo Samuel week 18 against the Texans, or week 17 against the Texans when you had to have it, or whichever example you want to use. Trey shows he has the ability, but with him being raw, that's where the consistency, I think, plays a part in the difference between him and Purdy, is because Purdy does everything consistently good. Trey does some things that are really great, and even can do some things that Purdy can't do. But I think the gap of consistency is so wide that there's a little hesitation for them to put him out there, because I think Trey Lance would have benefited actually from being in like a Justin Fields type situation where the whole team kind of stinks.
Right.
You're going to put him out there. There's no expectation for
lumps,
him
right?
to win. Like, because you remember the talk going into the offseason, 49ers are Super Bowl favorites with Trey Lance at quarterback. So not only was it going to be his first opportunity to get to play, but he had the weight of the world and expectation on him. And again, the best scouts and the best evaluators do what you said, and you keep referencing, just watch what your eyes tell you. But we know that the world doesn't evaluate that way. The world evaluates through, he's a first round pick, number 3 overall, 3 first round picks to go get him. That's how they evaluate. That's the preface of Trey Lance. And it's not like, okay, well, we're actually looking at what he can and can't do, and he needs some time, he needs some polish. Do we put him out there? What happens if we put him? So it's just this whole back and forth. And it's like, I agree. I think Trey Lance has absolutely the potential to be a really good quarterback. But what I'm reading from Kyle and how he's managed the situation is that he's not ready to Kyle's standards. And Kyle's standards are more aligned with Brock and what his standards provide. And so it's an interesting situation. I like the comp. I understand where you're coming from. It's not a traits comp. It's like an archetype comp.
Right.
And I think Trey's unfortunate demise, not I'm going to say demise, but his unfortunate circumstance is that he was placed on a team that was ready to win now, and they brought Jimmy back his rookie year. And I think that inability to go out and play week to week and grow in real time, we're now just on hold. We're now just on now he has an injury. Now it's like, oh boy, like we're just the time is ticking, and it's now becoming a bit of a time sensitive issue. That and Brock Purdy showed enough, and I think he proved enough to his teammates. He proved enough to the coaching staff that he's definitely deserving of getting first crack at quarterback 1. I do think it should be an open competition. I'm not a huge fan of handing starting roles to anyone. I think football is best. You get the best out of people in football when they're competing. So I think it should absolutely be a competition, but I do think if you had to ask me day 1 of training camp, all things considered, both quarterbacks are healthy, I would say Brock Purdy's out there with the ones.